It is only in the last century that humanity's power to threaten its entire future became apparent. One of the most harrowing episodes has just recently come to light. On Saturday, October 27, 1962, a single officer on a Soviet submarine almost started a nuclear war. His name was Valentin Savitsky. He was captain of the submarine B-59, one of 4 submarines the Soviet Union had sent to support its military operations in Cuba. Each was armed with a secret weapon, a nuclear torpedo with explosive power comparable to the Hiroshima bomb. It was the height of the Cuban Missile Crisis. 2 weeks earlier, U.S. aerial reconnaissance had produced photographic evidence that the Soviet Union was installing nuclear missiles in Cuba, from which they could strike directly at the mainland United States. In response, the U.S. blockaded the seas around Cuba, drew up plans for an invasion, and brought its nuclear forces to the unprecedented alert level of DEFCON 2, next step to nuclear war. On that Saturday, one of the blockading U.S. warships detected Savitsky's submarine and attempted to force it to surface by dropping low explosive depth charges as warning shots. The submarine had been hiding deep underwater for days. It was out of radio contact, so the crew did not know whether war had already broken out. Conditions on board were extremely bad. It was built for the Arctic, and its ventilator had broken in the tropical water. The heat inside was unbearable, ranging from 113 degrees Fahrenheit near the torpedo tubes to 140 degrees in the engine room. Carbon dioxide had built up to dangerous concentrations, and crew members had begun to fall unconscious. Depth charges were exploding right next to the hull. One of the crew later recalled, "It felt like you were sitting in a metal barrel, which somebody is constantly blasting with a sledgehammer." Increasingly desperate, Captain Savitsky ordered his crew to prepare their secret weapon. Maybe the war had already started up there, while we are doing somersaults here. We're going to blast them now. We will die, but we will sink them all. We will not disgrace our Navy. Firing the nuclear weapon required the agreement of the submarine's political officer, who held the other half of the firing key. Despite the lack of authorization from Moscow, the political officer gave his consent. On any other of the 3 submarines, this would have sufficed to launch their nuclear weapon. But by the purest luck, submarine B-59 carried the commander of the entire flotilla, Captain Vasili Arkhipov, and so required his additional consent. Arkhipov refused to grant it. Instead, he talked Captain Savitsky down from his rage and convinced him to give up, to surface amidst the U.S. warships and await further orders from Moscow. We do not know precisely what would have happened if Arkhipov had granted his consent, or had simply been stationed on any of the other 3 submarines. Perhaps Savitsky would not have followed through on his command. What is clear is that we came precariously close to a nuclear strike on the blockading fleet, a strike which would most likely have resulted in nuclear retaliation, then escalation to a full-scale nuclear war, the only kind the U.S. had plans for. Years later, Robert McNamara, Secretary of Defense during this crisis, came to the same conclusion. No one should believe that had U.S. troops been attacked by nuclear warheads, the U.S. would have refrained from responding with nuclear warheads. Where would it have ended? In utter disaster. Ever since the advent of nuclear weapons, humans have been making choices with such stakes. Ours is a world of flawed decision makers, working with strikingly incomplete information, directing technologies which threaten the entire future of the species. We were lucky that Saturday in 1962 and have so far avoided catastrophe. But our destructive capabilities continue to grow, and we cannot rely on luck forever.